mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. At AM 630. WMAL.
8:07 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson, Brian Neiman on the line. D.C. Councilmember Jim Graham. A lot of things we want to talk to you about. Want to get into that whole controversy and the fight between the Taxi Cab Commission and this company called Uber. But, Mr. Graham, if I could start by talking about the Nationals and whether or not there's going to be Metro service if there should be late-night playoff games. That's been very much in discussion. We hear that a work is in the fix, but we don't seem to be quite to the point yet where we can say what the fix is. Do you have any information you can share about that?
Well, I think it's going to happen. I think we can all rest assured that the Nationals are not going to be handicapped, if you will, by a metro system that shuts down on it. I mean, one way or another, it's going to happen. But I don't think an agreement has been reached as yet.
Well, is it fair to do something for the Nationals that you don't do for the Redskins, or you don't do for the Caps, or you don't do for Madonna?
Well, that's the problem. Of course, I was at Madonna last night, by the way.
Really? How was it?
And the wonderful music is still pounding in my head, but I can still hear her right this morning. But it's going to be worked out, because I think that it's under a lot of pressure. I think the Nationals are concerned about precedent that's being set here that could, operate in other cities, which have subway systems, and it's a complicated issue, but it's going to get resolved.
Let me ask you this something on a side note on that, because it was reported that under a previous agreement with the Verizon Center that Metro's trains would stay open late. What does that mean? Does that mean that the Verizon Center paid for it, or does that mean that there was an agreement that Metro would stay open for it? Do we have any idea of who paid for the extra service last night?
I don't recall that. I do know that in terms of the Redskins, what you're saying is correct in terms of other athletic events.
All right, so
Metro has been pretty insistent.
I know that the governor of Virginia yesterday said that he thought that everybody should be involved in paying for it, and that included Maryland, D.C., Virginia, the Nationals, and Major League Baseball.
Well, if Metro pays for it, everybody would be involved, because the fact of the matter is that that's money from the entire system, from the entire region. I think it makes a lot of sense. Everybody has a stake in the Nationals, and but it's just tricky right now. I know it is because of how the other teams are treated.
One last question on this, though, because if you're saying, and just about everybody in the D.C. Council has said this, and Metro has said pretty much the same thing, that the trains will run if the game goes past midnight, don't you lose all your leverage with the Nationals and Major League Baseball? I mean, if they know the trains are going to be there, why would they even come to the table?
If I was saying that, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I'm confident this is going to be worked out before it becomes a problem.
All right, but you did say rest assured that the trains would still be running past midnight.
I think the game is going to be accommodated, one way or another, because this is going to get worked out. I mean, this is too important to all of us that we have excellent public transportation when that game ends.
All right, so we got this controversy. There's this company in town. It's a software company, really, that takes their software. You put it in your app, your phone. You hit the app, and you can order up a sedan. It'll come right to you. And they work with sedan owners around town. It's called Uber. And the Taxi Cab Commission is throwing up what seem to be a lot of roadblocks, because it would seem that a lot of people who drive taxis don't like the idea of Uber. You were at a hearing on this yesterday. Where are you on this matter?
Well, I think I started out in one place, but the hearing was very helpful to me, because here's what it looked like we had. We had a situation where we have a heavily regulated industry that's becoming more and more regulated every single day in an effort to improve its performance, which everybody would agree that there are real problems with that performance. And those problems with performance are what is inviting a service like Uber into the city, obviously, because they want the reliability, they want the comfort, they want the vehicles, and so that's why Uber is so popular. And believe me, I know they are popular because I've heard from my constituents about this. But you have a heavily regulated industry, and then you have the newcomers. And I asked yesterday, how many operators are there? How many operators does Uber have? And the CEO said he thought it was probably around 500. 500 in 7 months. That tells you just how quickly expanding this is. But in they come, unregulated entirely. And so that was a dilemma.
But unregulated, but universally loved.
Yes, but unregulated and in competition.
Right.
So the other side was saying that's unfair competition. That's you have us hobbled, tied at the wrists and the ankles, while in comes this new competitor with complete freedom. So that was the dilemma, but I can skip to the solution if you'd like.
Sure, that's what we really want.
Brian and Brian. The solution is not to hobble Uber. The solution is to unhobble the taxi cab industry. What am I talking about? Well, we're talking about creating a new taxi cab class license, which is an S license, a sedan license. And if we make it clear that taxi cab operator companies can apply for these licenses, in other words, they too can compete with sedan service, then you have a different playing field. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're saying basically allow the cabbies to be sedans.
Exactly. And to do everything that the sedans are doing. I mean, the word app, as we now know it, of course, we've used the word dispatch since 1927. It's not that far away. But the fact of the matter is that we can provide a level playing field. We can improve the industry through competition. I believe in competition. If we make the new law clear that the existing taxicab companies can create sedan companies and compete directly.
All right, I got to get one more question in. The other day, we saw this story about a thing over at Rhode Island Avenue where a parking company, Colonial Parking, was actually writing. They weren't calling them citations, but they were tickets on cars that were parked on what everybody thought was a public street. Right. And if you didn't pay the ticket, you didn't deal with the law enforcement. You dealt with a ding on your credit report. How is that allowed, and how can they write a ticket for a car on the street?
I don't know. I don't think they can.
Well, they're doing it.
Well, I don't. I can check on that right away, but I don't think there's any legal authority to enforce it. I mean, you can write a note to anyone. I could write a note to you, Brian and Brian.
But how can they have control over?
Charge you $50.
But how can they have control over an area that's on the public street?
Well, I'm saying I don't think they can.
Well, they clearly think they can.
Well, they're doing. I mean, they even have kiosks set up where you have to go and put in money and get the ticket out and put it on your dashboard.
Could you get an answer for us on that? Because that's really been troublesome. Because we can't really get a straight answer on how they're doing that. I mean, I'm sure there's an explanation, but we're not.
Yeah, on its face, it wouldn't seem to be enforceable. I mean,
well, it's not enforceable by the police.
How do you enforce a ticket?
Well, it's because they say then you owe them money. And it's a lien, basically.
And if you don't pay, then they put a ding on your credit record.
I don't know. Well, let me look into that.
Okay.
That don't make sense to me.
We'll talk to you again soon about that then.
Okay.
All right, Councilman Jim Graham, good to have you.